Hey everyone, you're listening to Business Minds Coffee Chat, and I am your host, Jay Scherr. And I am so excited today. So, this is actually part two of a two-part conversation. Last week on the show, I welcomed my incredible guest, Amberly Lago, and Amberly is back today for the second half of our conversation. If you did not have a chance to listen to our first conversation last week, I would encourage you to make sure you go back and listen to it and take notes. There was so much incredible value that Amberly provided in that conversation, and I know that there's going to be a lot more in our conversation today. So, Amberly, I want to welcome you back to the Business Minds Coffee Chat show. Thank you so very much again for being here today. You're incredible.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. I love talking to you and I feel so honored to be here. So thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. So, just to refresh everyone's memory from last week, you had gone through the acronym SPARK, and you went through what each of the letters represent, gave some examples, and there's a couple things that I want to talk about today that we didn't necessarily get a chance to cover in our first conversation. And part of it is around forgiveness. So
Mm,
you talk about forgiveness in your latest book, Joy Through the Journey. And I want to
mhm.
spend a couple of moments or two talking about the importance of forgiveness, but I'd like you to give a personal story or example of where forgiveness became so important for you, for your own growth and your own ability to be able to move forward.
Oh yeah, I think forgiveness is powerful. I mean, it's not easy in a lot of cases. In fact, I just did a post today and it was one of these posts where I was like, "Oh, I don't know, should I press publish?" Because I talk about the sexual abuse from my stepfather.
Mm,
And I did so much therapy, so much work on myself because I carried a lot of shame. I carried a lot of anger, a lot of fear um, with me. That it wasn't my shame to carry. You know what I mean? But
Tell
it
us what age you were when this was happening to you.
My mom was divorced. I was 8 years old, and then she
Yeah.
quickly remarried to my stepdad, who at first I was like, "Man, this is wonderful. He always brings us all these toys and these gifts." And as soon as they got married, everything changed, and the
Mm,
sexual abuse began pretty quickly. And I knew it wasn't right. I was scared. He was a big guy. I was a little girl, and when you trust an adult or an authority figure, and I said it wasn't right. And he said, "No, this is the way fathers teach their daughters. This is right." And
wow.
um, I lived in that fear, never felt safe for a long time. And I finally got the courage up to tell my dad. And I had told him, I said, "Dad, you can't tell anyone, but this is what's going on." And it was really a cry for help. And my dad kept his promise. He didn't do anything. And so the abuse continued until one day my stepfather came in my room and I kicked him and hit him. And I remember pulling his hair and doing everything I could to fight him off. And the look on his face, he was so surprised. And you know what? He never laid a hand on me after that one night.
Wow.
Now, the psychological abuse continued, and I never felt safe. And I remember being at the kitchen table one day, and my mom was doing the dishes, and her back was to my dad, and I was sitting across the table, and he looked at me and he mouthed, "You wait till your mother leaves." And so
Mm,
there was always this fear, and so I stuffed all that down for a long time, and I coped in ways that I became an overachiever. I did things that make me feel better. I became a straight A student, and I knew I was leaving as soon as I graduated and I was going to go after my dreams. And I really feel that pain pushes you until your purpose pulls you. And I knew there was no turning back. And so I did move to LA and made a life for myself. But underneath it all, this driving force of pain, and there was no forgiveness. It wasn't until I went to a psychiatrist, I went to a shrink because I was having an issue with a boyfriend.
Okay.
Imagine that, me having my picker for picking guys was totally broken, and I kept picking the same kind of guy. And
Hmm.
she said, "Have you been sexually abused?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, 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 but I've dealt with that." She goes, "No, you have not dealt with that." And from that moment on, I read books, we dove into it in therapy, and I really started to forgive so I could move on and let go of the shame and let go of the anger. And it was a long process. But I think, Jay, one of the things that really helped me with forgiveness was in recovery. Man, I'm telling you, a 12-step program is not just been a gift for me getting sober. I think everybody, if you don't know what a 12-step program is, it is a design for living, really. And there is a part where you write down, of course, your defects and all the things that you've done wrong, and taking a good hard look at yourself and your part in every situation. But you also have a chance to look at how others have harmed you or wronged you, and it's a place to really let go and let God. And I remember being so upset about my stepfather, who actually was confronted with it. My mom found out, and so many people found out because my ex-husband told. And he never denied it.
Mm.
Never. I thought for all these years he would deny it. He never denied it. But my ex-husband, that's a whole other story. But when I was going through the 12 steps with my sponsor, she said, "You need to pray for him." And I was like, "Pray for him?" Because I had a lot of resentment, and resentment is not good when you're an alcoholic. It can lead you to picking up a drink. So I did. I prayed for people who had wronged me. I prayed for my ex-husband, and that was, and you're listening and you might be going, "Pray for my ex-husband?" No way. Or pray for the person who sexually abused me? No way. I'm telling you, it was transformative. It helped me forgive. Not that I forget, but when you can pray for that person, it gives you peace and serenity. And you can learn to let go and I say let go and let God, but let go and believe in a higher power that is going to carry you through. I don't do anything alone. And so forgiveness is the gift that you give yourself. They
Mm.
don't get free rent in your head or in your heart. Like, you can let it go. It is just it's the weight that is lifted off of you when you can do that. And again, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's possible.
So I do want to touch on this for a moment because you just articulated this perfectly that it's not easy, but it is possible. So share with us, let's pull the curtain back for just a moment or two about the difficulty of getting to the point where you can either say the words, you can write it down, because I can only imagine the things that are going on in your mind, right? The stories that you're telling yourself. So, what was the breakthrough for you? So, obviously, it was difficult, but what did finally give you the strength or the courage to be able to say the words, "I forgive you"?
Um, well, you know what? I think the truth will set you free.
Mm.
We heal what we reveal. And actually, I never had a chance to tell my stepfather that I forgive you, because I never had a chance to talk to him after he found out. So how he found out, I'll just tell you really quick. I,
Okay.
I think sometimes other situations happen that when you're in them, they are horrible and you're like, how could this be going on? But it ends up being a blessing or a lesson for you. And for me, it was both. So ex-husband was abusive, and he had done everything, and I think the only I had told him that I had confided in him. I hadn't told anybody except for my dad and him, and he, I think, to try to hurt me, in a rage, picked up the phone and called my mom and told her what had happened. He said, "Do you know what your stepfather did to my wife?" And I was devastated that she found out, but I got on the phone with her, and she said, "Did this happen?" And I said, "Yeah." And she went and confronted my stepdad. He didn't deny it. She flew out to California to be with me. And when she got back, he was gone. So he ran away. They couldn't find him. He left her with a disabled son and my younger sister. So he was on the run. I never got to talk to him. He just like disappeared. No one could find him. He ended up living, and there were times we talked about energy in the last week, energy vampires, how you can feel energy. Well, there were times when I felt this icky, weird energy, this feeling like somebody was watching me, like this feeling he was watching me.
Okay.
He ended up living an hour away from me in California. Out of
Oh
all the
my
places to
gosh.
live, that's where he lived. I still
Wow.
never really got to talk to him. I didn't really want to, but he ended up passing away. He died of testicular cancer. Imagine
Mm,
that.
mm.
But I was able to do a lot of writing, and I was able to talk to my sponsor and my therapist about it. And sometimes we don't get to tell that person, but we can tell our higher power. I think writing about it is cathartic. There is something so healing when you write about it. And when I wrote my first book, True Grit and Grace, I actually wrote publicly about it in a book that became a bestseller. And I remember when this book came in the mail and my husband was looking at it, and on the back of the book, it says, overcame sexual abuse. And my husband is very private. He's a former lieutenant commander. He doesn't like social media. He doesn't like people over the house. He's just very private. He goes, "Oh my gosh, do you see it says sexual abuse on the back of the book?" And I said, "Yeah, honey, I write about it in the book. Maybe you want to read the book." And so one of the things that was hard, when I wrote about it, I'm not, yeah, it was vulnerable. And yet I have learned that vulnerability can be your superpower because it connects you with people that you build this incredible bond. And from that book, which is a love story really about my husband and I, but it talks about everything from addiction to them overcoming 34 surgeries to save my leg and the motorcycle accident. But I talk about the sexual abuse. And Jay, I have had men and women come up to me and tell me, "Thank you for writing about that." Men who have reached out and said, "I was abused by a priest. I was abused by someone at school. Thank you for writing about that. I don't feel like I have to hold my head down in shame. I can walk with dignity and my chin held up." And so to me, it's worth it when you do the work to really heal yourself. And it's a continuous journey. I mean, I'm not healed and everything's fine. I still get triggered. There are times when I get triggered, and at first it would make me mad. It would take me out. I would be in tears. But now I can recognize it, and I know that there are tools to move through it. But at first, it helps to talk with someone that you feel safe with.
I so appreciate you sharing this with all of us, and it's amazing to me to watch your journey and to be able to see the growth that you experience, and that when you are vulnerable, when you are sharing information that is very difficult to talk about, that it opens the conversation and it creates a safe space for others to be able to say, "I've experienced that as
Yeah.
well." And thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And
Thank you.
you become an ear and a heart for others to be able to have those kinds of difficult conversations as well. So you truly are amazing. So, Amberly, We're going to push pause on our conversation. We are going to take a brief break to thank our amazing sponsors. My friends, you are listening to Business Minds Coffee Chat. Don't you go anywhere. We will be right back. All right, we're back. And again, you're listening to Business Minds Coffee Chat, and I am here today with my amazing guest, Amberly Lago. What a fantastic conversation we're having. And I just want to remind everybody that this is the second episode of our conversation with Amberly. Please make sure, if you didn't get a chance to already listen to it, that you go back to last week's episode and listen to the first part of our conversation. You're going to get so much value out of that, just as you are out of this conversation. So, Amberly, before the break, of course, we were having difficult conversation talking about some of the trauma that you've experienced and forgiveness and how you've been able to move through that, and also realizing that we're all a work in progress. I mean,
Yeah.
even though you've been able to forgive people in the past, we have to work on it every day. It's not a situation where once we reach that place that it's one and done. So
That'd be
I
nice,
want to,
wouldn't it?
wouldn't it be nice? It would be. But, I have found, and I'd love to hear your feedback on this. I found that the more work I do on me, right, the more layers of the onion I peel back, the more I discover. So I learn tools and strategies to be able to help my own growth and overcome challenges, which helps make me stronger, more confident, more agile. But I also, there's a lot more work to be done, but because I've already done this amount of work and learned these tools and strategies, I'm not starting from zero, right? I already have some tools in my tool belt that can help me with the new challenges in front of me. So speak to that a little bit, if you will. So the growth that you've experienced, all the challenges that you've been through, the surgeries, the accident, the sexual abuse, the alcoholism, the addiction, all of it. You are a different version of the person who you were when you went through all of that stuff. So today, you're so much stronger. What is it like for you to look back now and see the version of who you were versus the person who you are today? Do you feel like, based on what you've experienced and what you've learned, is there anything that either would surprise you at this point, or is there anything that you think that you are not ready for?
Oh, well, I don't ever feel ready.
Really?
I don't. I don't. I mean, I guess maybe I'm hard on myself, but I before ever this is the busiest, I mean, the most booked I've ever been for speaking. I mean, I've been speaking for years, but this is the first time I'm literally speaking 2-3 times a week. I'm traveling to a different state every week to speak at events, which I feel so blessed to get to do. And yet
By the way, you're on big stages these days. I've seen you.
I'm like pinching myself, to be honest with you.
I
I
love it.
still have moments where I'm like, are you sure you want me to be your keynote speaker? Like
Oh,
I feel so blessed I get to do that, and I get to do what I get to do, and be at these amazing events. And I still, I mean, I have notes on my desk here. I still, before every talk, I get super nervous. And then I remember it's not about me, it's about the people that I serve. And then afterwards, I feel like, I prepare, then I go say whatever comes out is going to come out on stage. And then afterwards, I'm like, oh, I forgot to say this or I forgot to say that. And I can be hard on myself. And my husband's like, you're so hard on yourself. Yeah, of course you're ready. You've been doing this forever. But I always want to learn and grow. And, I just spoke at an event a couple of days ago, and they reached out to me to ask how they could do better at their event for their speakers. And I'm like, well, can I ask you, how can I do better as a speaker? I'm open for, feedback, if anybody gave, I want to evolve and get better. I always want to get better. And I feel like the more that I know, the more that I feel like I don't know. Like there's so
Mm,
much to learn, you know?
yeah.
And so I'm always learning and growing. And I also don't mind getting humbled, because when I'm humbled, it just reminds me that I have the strength to move forward and keep going. And, you know, everything that we go through, you grow through. Every setback, every challenge is it gives you the possibility to learn how to have more grit, to learn to be more resilient. In fact, I think one of the things that has helped me so much as an entrepreneur is,
Mhm.
you know, I was in the dance industry, and that was hardcore. That was cutthroat. I mean, you got rejected, you got told no. And so when I work with, you know, clients who are upset that they did get the gig, the jig, the gig, whatever, or they feel like they were taking something personally, I'm like, look, I used to be lined up in a line, and you were grateful if they didn't make you stay all day and then cut you at the last minute. Like if you weren't the right fit for what they were looking for, I'd rather be told up front. Like they would put you in a line, and too fat, too skinny, too muscular, too tall. Not,
Mm.
it was like constantly. And you had to shift your mind. I did shift my mindset. Okay, that was a no, but that just means I'm closer to a yes. If that was, you know, you were told that it wasn't going to work out, that was like, okay, how can I improve and get better for the next gig? I always felt like I'm being redirected to the door that is going to open for me. And so I feel like everything that I've gone through has prepared me for where I am today. Sometimes we don't understand, like, why is this happening? It's always happening for you.
Yes, absolutely. That is so good. Now, I want to remind everybody that what you just heard Amberly say, that is a mindset shift, and it's a way of reframing language that we use, right? A story that we tell ourselves. And it's also important to acknowledge the hard work, Amberly, that you've put in to be able to build that type of mindset. Because, quite frankly, at least for me and for many others that I'm surrounded by, it doesn't happen overnight, right? See, it does require work, but you're capable of also building a mindset like that, right? That's going to be yours, but it will enable you to be able to see what's happening, to see the things that life presents to you, whatever it happens to be, and that you can frame it in a way that it's there to help you grow. It's there to, if there's pain involved, you can take that pain and you can turn it into joy. You can turn it into growth, right? Because in order for us to grow, we have to go through the difficult things. But if we're telling ourselves that I can't do this, or this isn't fair, or this always happens to me, guess what happens? We get
Mhm.
stuck. We get stuck. So we can work on building that mindset. Amberly, what is something that you think that people often get wrong about you?
Oh, goodness. I don't think people realize. I just had a comment the other day. I'm hardly on YouTube. I need to be on YouTube more. But there was something, it alerted my phone, and there was a comment, and I was talking about when I was back in the hospital, and I told the doctors I knew as soon as I could move that it would move my mood and I would feel better mentally, because they kept trying to put me on antidepressants. They're like, your life is screwed, basically. And
Wow.
every doctor was like, you're going to need to be on antidepressants. And nothing against antidepressants, but they just didn't work for me. They made me so sick. And so I did this YouTube Shorts video, and I'm talking about, like, I asked the doctors for a pull up bar on the hospital bed, and my friend for some dumbbells. And it moved my mood. And this guy came out and said, well, it's because of people like you that doctors don't believe that we're actually in pain. shame on you. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
dude, you have no idea that I'm in pain right now, that I just had another spinal cord stimulator, that I have been through ketamine infusions. I was on 73 homeopathic pills and 11 prescription medication. My husband sees me, I'm on stage and I'm dancing and I'm pouring into communities, and I feel no pain when I'm on stage. It's the only time I feel no pain. I get home and I can crash and I can't even walk. And so a lot of people, I think, don't realize that I wake up in pain every single day. They don't realize, my husband will say, you're not normal. You're not like your other friends that go to events and speak on stages. They don't deal with the constant chronic nerve pain that you have. And it's true, but you know what? I don't let that define me. And I don't focus on that. I don't like to talk about it all the time, because I like to do things that, I like to focus on the good and focus on the wins and celebrate those wins along the way. And in fact, like in my mastermind, I always tell the ladies, we start off, I say, tell me your win. Before we get into hot seats and talk about what a challenge is, I want to know what their win is so we can celebrate that. When I'm talking to somebody that might be a doggy downer in my life, that is an energy vampire, when I get on the phone, the first thing I do is say, tell me something good. And they're kind of like, oh, you have those people that they just want to complain all the time. Like, tell me something
Sure.
good. And they're like, oh, gosh, there goes Amberly wanting me to talk about the good again.
I love that, though. That's so good. So, Amberly, I want to thank you so very much for joining us today on Business Minds Coffee Chat. My friends, I know this has been quite the conversation, same as last week. The book, Joy Through the Journey. Make sure you pick up a copy of that, read it, reach out to Amberly. Her contact information will be available to you. Make sure you reach out to Amberly and let her know what you thought about her book, her story, how she's impacting your life. Share one of those wins. She's accessible. She's amazing. She's a phenomenal speaker. And Amberly, you're just a gift. I mean, all I can tell you is how grateful I am that you are part of my life and that our paths crossed. And thank you for being here today.
Oh, I'm so grateful for you, Jay. You are a friend. You're not getting rid of me. And yeah, please reach out to me. DM me on Instagram. I check all those messages. If you want to share, it stays with me. I don't go around posting or telling anybody about it, not even my husband. But just know you don't have to do it alone. And please reach out to me. Thank you,
Absolutely.
Jay. You're
Yes,
amazing.
ma'am. As are you. And my friends, I want to thank you so very much for joining us today on Business Minds Coffee Chat. We'll be back next Saturday morning at 8:30. And until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep doing the work to reach your potential. Take care, everybody.